Audrey froze, the blood draining from her face, as she heard her mother-in-law Patricia call another woman the perfect future daughter-in-law while referring to her as the pregnant hick who's holding my son hostage. It was a scorching Sunday afternoon in Dallas, Texas, the kind of dry, oppressive heat that shimmered off the asphalt and made the air thick with the scent of freshly cut St. Augustine grass and expensive barbecue smoke. The sprawling faux Tuscan mansion in Highland Park was packed with relatives for the traditional weekly gathering of the Sterling family. Audrey, 7 months pregnant with her first child, was climbing the grand staircase slowly, feeling the cumbersome weight of her belly and the oppressive humidity of the Texas summer. She had planned a silly private joke. She was going to hide behind the master bedroom door and jump out to startle Liam when he came upstairs looking for her. It was a small, childish attempt to inject some lightness into the increasingly strained atmosphere of the Sterling household, a place where every surface seemed to gleam with a cold, polished expectation she could never quite meet. The house smelled of slow-smoked brisket, creamy mac and cheese, and the faint, expensive aroma of Patricia Sterling's signature gardenia perfume, dishes that Patricia insisted on serving at every family gathering, a testament to her flawless, if slightly intimidating, domestic perfection. Audrey slipped into the master bedroom, pulling the heavy oak door almost shut, and held her breath, stifling a nervous giggle. She could hear the muffled roar of voices downstairs, the booming laughter of her brother-in-law, Marcus, and the loud, opinionated conversation of her father-in-law, Robert, holding court about the latest stock market trends and the upcoming gubernatorial race. She waited for Liam to come up at any moment, calling her name with that practiced, affectionate tone he always used in front of his family. But the door was pushed open not by Liam, but by Patricia, her mother-in-law, who strode in quickly, her cell phone already pressed to her ear. Audrey instinctively pressed herself flat against the wall behind the door, her heart hammering against her ribs. She remained motionless, a statue of fear and shock as Patricia closed the door behind her and began speaking loudly, completely unaware of the silent, pregnant woman just inches away. Patricia's voice, usually modulated to a smooth society page purr, echoed with startling clarity in the silent, air-conditioned room. Audrey's heart leapt into her throat when she realized the phone was on speaker. It was Carol, Patricia's best friend and social confidant, on the other end, chuckling about something Audrey hadn't yet grasped. Patricia let out a cynical, brittle laugh and then delivered a line that caused Audrey's world to collapse in a matter of seconds. "Blair Harrington is perfect for my son, Carol. Beautiful, impeccably dressed, runs a high-end med spa in the West Village." Audrey felt a violent lurch in her stomach, a sudden, nauseating drop, but she couldn't move, her body paralyzed as if turned to stone. In that instant, a truth she had always suppressed even from herself became undeniable. There had always been a silent, gnawing discomfort between her and Patricia, a constant feeling of being judged, measured, and found wanting. It was as if her mother-in-law carried an invisible ledger of Audrey's flaws, her modest upbringing in rural Oklahoma, her state school education, her lack of interest in the Dallas social scene. And now, finally, the entire cruel list materialized in the venomous voice echoing through the room. Audrey wondered how many times she had dismissed the subtle eye rolls, the backhanded compliments, the advice disguised as affection. Now it all clicked into place, like the pieces of a perverse puzzle snapping together all at once. The physical shock was so profound that a wave of dizziness washed over her, making the polished hardwood floor tilt precariously beneath her feet. Carol responded with something inaudible, a low conspiratorial murmur, and Patricia continued, her tone now laced with an even more chilling cruelty. "But the fool can't leave her now. That pregnant hick of a wife is 7 months along, imagine the scandal." Audrey choked back a silent sob, clamping a trembling hand over her mouth to muffle the sound. Her legs began to tremble uncontrollably. A fine sheen of cold sweat broke out on her forehead, and she had to brace herself against the wall to keep from collapsing. The sheer physical effort of remaining silent and upright was immense, a battle fought entirely within the confines of her own body. Patricia continued speaking, oblivious to the emotional earthquake she was causing just a few feet away. "And you know what the best part is? This Audrey is set to inherit those massive tracts of land from her grandmother out near the I-35 corridor. Patricia's voice was now thick with pure malice, each word a sharp, serrated blade slicing through Audrey's fragile composure. The old woman is fading fast, you know. Once the inheritance clears probate, Liam waits a few months, pretends the marriage just ran its course, and then he quietly slips away. Audrey fumbled for her phone in her pocket, her fingers shaking so violently she almost dropped it, and pressed the record button, still hidden behind the door. The screen glowed faintly in the dim light, a silent witness to the unfolding betrayal. Then he marries Blair, takes his half of the estate in the divorce settlement, and everyone wins. Patricia let out a satisfied, self-congratulatory laugh, as if she had just shared a stroke of financial genius. Audrey is sweet, bless her heart, but she has no class, no presence. She's simply not suited for my son's future. Carol laughed on the other end, a high-pitched, brittle sound, and Patricia finalized her plan with pure venom in her voice. The con is going to be beautiful, Carol. Beautiful and absolutely foolproof. A wave of icy coldness washed over Audrey. Despite the suffocating heat of the Dallas afternoon in October, she was being betrayed by her husband, manipulated by her mother-in-law, and now she had the entire damning confession recorded. Patricia ended the call, adjusted the diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist, smoothed her perfectly coiffed blonde hair in the mirror, and swept out of the room as if she had merely been discussing the weather. Audrey waited until the sound of Patricia's heels faded down the hallway before she dared to move. Her legs were like rubber, threatening to give way with every step, but she managed to maintain a mask of strained normalcy as she descended the stairs and rejoined the gathering. The luncheon was still in full swing. Robert, her father-in-law, was talking loudly about his latest acquisition, and Marcus, her brother-in-law, was telling a crude joke about a colleague at his investment firm. Liam smiled warmly when he saw her, his eyes crinkling at the corners in a way that used to melt her heart. He took her hand, his grip firm and reassuring, and asked quietly, "Everything okay, honey? You look a little pale." She nodded, forcing a weak smile, while the phone in her pocket felt like a lead weight holding the explosive audio recording. The sheer hypocrisy of his concern was a physical blow, making her jaw ache with the effort of not screaming. Patricia was seated at the head of the long mahogany table, serving more mac and cheese to everyone, radiating the aura of the perfect, loving matriarch. When Audrey sat down, her mother-in-law looked at her with a beaming, overly warm smile and announced loudly for all to hear, "My daughter-in-law is such a blessing, everyone." Audrey clenched her teeth so hard her molars ground together, but kept her expression neutral as Patricia continued the performance. Everyone at the table murmured their agreement, praising Audrey, and she felt an almost irresistible urge to stand up and expose the truth right then and there. The room seemed to spin slightly, the polite, oblivious faces blurring into a single, monstrous entity of deceit. When the plates were cleared and the pecan pie was served, Patricia stood up and walked over to Audrey, placing a hand on her shoulder with a sickeningly false tenderness. "Honey, you look exhausted, you know? You really need to take better care of yourself." Her voice was sweet, but Audrey felt the poison hidden in every syllable. "Liam is a young, handsome man. You need to stay presentable, even pregnant." Audrey felt the sharp, invisible stab, but before she could react, Patricia instantly softened her tone, the transition seamless and practiced. "But it's normal, my dear. Pregnancy does that to a woman. I only want what's best for you, my sweet daughter-in-law." Patricia leaned down and placed a dry air kiss on Audrey's cheek, leaving a trail of hypocrisy in her wake. Liam didn't even notice the disguised malice. He continued eating his pie placidly, laughing at something Marcus had said. Audrey looked around the table, filled with people who supposedly loved her, and realized she was utterly, terrifyingly alone. The isolation was a cold, heavy blanket settling over her. When the day finally ended and she closed the bedroom door behind her, the mask she had maintained throughout the luncheon shattered. Audrey cried silently, burying her face in the pillow so as not to wake Liam, feeling the combined weight of her pregnancy and the betrayal crush her chest. It was a contained, desperate weeping mixed with fear, despair, and that primal instinct only a mother feels when she realizes she must fight for herself and the child she carries. Each tear carried away a piece of the innocence she would never regain. The physical sensation was overwhelming, a tight band around her ribs making it hard to breathe, a cold metallic taste of fear at the back of her throat, and the constant dull ache of her baby kicking, a tiny insistent reminder of the life she had to protect. In the dead of night, in the early hours of Monday morning, Audrey sent the audio file to her cousin, Clara Davies, a sharp-witted corporate litigation attorney who worked for a major firm in downtown Houston. The response came back in seconds, a single all-caps text. "Say nothing, just record everything else, document everything. We're going to take down this circus the right way." Audrey read the message, feeling a strange, fierce strength growing within her, mixed with the pain and rage. Liam slept soundly beside her, oblivious. His arm draped casually over her side, completely unaware that his elaborate charade was about to crumble. She gently pushed his arm away, the touch now repulsive, and spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, the plan already beginning to form in her mind. In the following days, Audrey began to observe everything with new, clinical eyes, every gesture from Liam, every word from Patricia, every mention of the mysterious Blair. Patricia spoke of Blair frequently, always with exaggerated praise. "Blair is so refined, her clinic is the gold standard. She's a true success story." Audrey pretended not to notice, but mentally catalogued every detail. Liam worked late almost every night, always with ready excuses about crucial meetings and demanding clients. The excuses were elaborate, involving late-night calls with clients in different time zones and emergency strategy sessions, but now they sounded hollow and rehearsed. One afternoon, while Liam was in the shower, Audrey quickly grabbed his laptop, which he had carelessly left open on the kitchen counter. She saw a suspicious email notification pop up, a confirmation for an appointment at a high-end med spa in the West Village, and the name listed was Consultation for Mr. L. Sterling, courtesy of Director B.H. Audrey felt a surge of hot, bitter bile rise in her throat, but she quickly snapped a photo of the screen with her phone and closed the laptop just as Liam emerged from the bathroom, whistling a cheerful tune. She sent the photo to Clara, who replied within minutes. "BH is Blair Harrington. Found her on Instagram, owner of Aura Aesthetics." Audrey opened the profile and saw a stunning woman, tall, blonde, with photos from international trips, exclusive dinner parties and designer clothes. Each photo was a fresh stab in Audrey's heart, but she kept looking, analyzing, memorizing. Clara texted again, "Stay calm, we need to gather all the evidence before we act." Audrey transformed herself into a professional investigator, all while playing the role of the submissive, devoted wife everyone expected. She recorded conversations, photographed screens, noted downtimes and locations, and stored everything in a heavily encrypted folder on her phone. Liam suspected nothing. He continued going out for his meetings and returning late, always with a quick, affectionate kiss and a convincing explanation. Patricia visited the house almost daily, bringing gourmet meals and expensive baby clothes, always with that false smile and those poisoned phrases disguised as maternal concern. "Audrey, you've gained quite a bit of weight, haven't you? Be careful not to get too many stretch marks." Or, "My son deserves a perfectly kept home, you know. Even pregnant, you need to keep everything in order." Audrey would smile, thank her for the advice and record every word. Clara laughed when she heard the audio clips. That old woman is going to regret every single syllable. One Saturday, Audrey claimed she was going to visit her grandmother at the nursing home, but in reality she followed Liam when he left the house, claiming he had to deal with an urgent issue at the office. She hailed an Uber and instructed the driver to keep a discreet distance as Liam's black Mercedes SUV pulled into the parking garage of a chic commercial building near the Galleria. Audrey got out 2 blocks away, put on a baseball cap and oversized sunglasses, and walked slowly until she saw Liam entering a trendy, upscale Italian restaurant in the area. She positioned herself outside, hidden behind a large planter, and watched as Blair arrived, radiant, perfectly scented, wearing a fitted designer dress that accentuated every curve. The two embraced at the entrance, and the hug lasted far too long to be merely a friendly greeting. Audrey took photos from a distance with her phone, trembling with a cold, controlled fury, but maintaining her composure. They entered the restaurant and sat at a secluded corner table, and through the glass, Audrey watched as Liam took Blair's hand across the table, his thumb stroking her knuckles. She returned home before him, saved the photos, and continued acting as if nothing had happened. When Liam arrived, she was in the kitchen preparing a late dinner, and he kissed her forehead, saying the office problem had been resolved. Audrey watched her husband move through the house, the picture of an impeccable, hard-working, honest man, while an abyss of realization opened up inside her. It was unsettling to see how naturally he smiled, a trained, almost rehearsed calm. In that moment, she understood that Liam was an excellent actor, and that for years she had been an unwitting audience to the most convincing role of his career. The realization hurt, but it also solidified her resolve. His lie would never be greater than her truth. Audrey smiled, served his plate, and asked him about his day. He lied effortlessly, and she recorded the entire conversation on her phone, hidden among the spice jars. Clara, the lawyer cousin, also began her investigation, using her contacts in the Houston legal and business community. Within days, she uncovered something devastating. Liam and Blair had secretly opened a new branch of Aura Aesthetics together, but they were using a shell corporation registered under the name of a third party. The documents were in the name of an accountant who worked for Blair, but the signatures and bank movements clearly indicated Liam's direct involvement. The intention was clear: to use Audrey's inheritance as seed money as soon as the funds were released. Clara sent all the documents to Audrey, who read every page with a broken heart, but with a growing, steely determination. Her grandmother owned 4 large tracts of undeveloped land near the I-35 corridor, valuable acreage worth millions. The plan was simple and cruel. Liam would wait for the inheritance to clear, convince Audrey to put part of the assets in his name to facilitate management, and then file for divorce, taking half of everything. Audrey also discovered that Blair and Patricia were much closer than she had imagined. Her mother-in-law was a regular client at Blair's clinic, always receiving special discounts, and the two had lunch together at least once a week at the River Oaks Country Club. They had photos together on social media, always marking the special friendship between them. Robert, her father-in-law, and the rest of the family treated Blair as if she were practically family, always praising Patricia's dear friend. The more Audrey discovered, the more she felt the sharp pain of betrayal, but the stronger her resolve for justice became. She was not going to be destroyed by these people. She would use her intelligence, her patience, and the law to turn the tables. And the first step would be to make everyone believe she knew absolutely nothing. Audrey decided to play the role of her life, the naive, loving wife, completely blind to the betrayal happening all around her. She cooked Liam's favorite meals, asked about his work with genuine interest, and massaged his shoulders when he complained of fatigue. Liam took the bait completely, relaxing into the deception, believing he had everything under control. He even commented to his mother, unaware that Audrey had installed a simple call recording app on his phone. "Audrey's been so affectionate lately, you wouldn't even know she's pregnant." Patricia continued her regular visits, always bringing something and dropping venomous comments disguised as maternal concern. "Audrey, you've really ballooned, haven't you? Be careful not to get too many stretch marks. Or my son deserves a perfectly kept home, you know. Even pregnant, you need to keep everything in order." Audrey would smile, thank her for the advice, and record every word. Clara would shake her head when listening to the audio. "This woman is a piece of work. We're going to make her pay for every syllable." One evening, Liam brought up a subject Audrey had been anticipating for days: the inheritance. They were lying in bed, and he started slowly with that casual, manipulative tone he used when he wanted something. "Honey, I was thinking, when your grandmother's estate is settled, we should put my name on the deeds too, you know?" Audrey feigned surprise, turning to him with wide, innocent eyes. "Why, sweetie?" Liam smiled, stroking her cheek. "To make management easier, right? I understand more about business. I can handle everything so you don't have to worry." Audrey felt a wave of nausea, but she maintained the mask and smiled back. "Of course, my love, that makes perfect sense. We'll sort it out next week, okay?" Liam kissed her, relieved, and fell asleep peacefully. Audrey waited until he was in a deep sleep, grabbed her phone and sent the recording of the conversation to Clara with a message. "He asked for exactly what you predicted." Clara replied immediately, "Perfect. That's proof of attempted misappropriation of assets." Keep pretending you'll agree, but don't sign anything. Audrey confirmed and spent the rest of the night awake, staring at the ceiling, meticulously planning every subsequent move. Her pregnancy was now in its 8th month, and she felt the baby moving inside her, as if fighting alongside its mother. She gently stroked her belly and whispered, "Mommy will protect you, my love, and Mommy will get justice." The next few weeks were a masterclass in deception. Audrey intensified her performance. She began casually discussing the inheritance, letting Liam and Patricia believe she was increasingly inclined to accept their help. "Liam, do you think we should invest the inheritance in some kind of business?" He practically drooled with anticipation, immediately suggesting he knew of excellent opportunities in the aesthetics and wellness sector. Audrey feigned interest, asked detailed questions, and recorded everything. She even went so far as to print out fake financial documents, simple spreadsheets Clara had mocked up, showing a hypothetical division of the assets, which she accidentally left on the kitchen counter for Liam to find. The sight of him poring over the fake numbers, his eyes gleaming with greed, was both sickening and exhilarating. It confirmed everything. The conflict deepened when Patricia began to escalate her interference. She started showing up unannounced with real estate agents, suggesting Audrey should sell her grandmother's land immediately, claiming the market was peaking. "Honestly, Audrey, that land is just sitting there doing nothing. It's a liability. Liam and I have a wonderful agent, Brenda, who can get you top dollar. We can reinvest the money into something tangible, something safe." Audrey would politely decline, citing Grandma's sentimental attachment and the need to wait until the baby was born before making any major decisions. This infuriated Patricia, who saw her carefully constructed timeline slipping away. One particularly tense afternoon, Patricia arrived with a full set of blueprints for a massive modern house she wanted Liam and Audrey to build on one of the smaller, more accessible tracts of land. "It's a gift, darling. A fresh start. We'll use the inheritance money for the construction, of course, and Liam can manage the whole project. It will be a beautiful family home, right next door to us." Audrey looked at the blueprints, a cold, minimalist structure that felt utterly alien to her, and felt a wave of claustrophobia. She realized Patricia wasn't just trying to steal the money. She was trying to erase Audrey's identity and absorb her into the Sterling family machine completely. "It's lovely, Patricia," Audrey said, her voice carefully neutral, "but I think I'd prefer to wait. The baby is due soon, and I really need to focus on that right now. Besides, I've been talking to Clara about setting up a trust for the land. It seems like the most responsible way to handle such a large asset for the baby's future." The mention of the trust and Clara's name was a calculated risk. Patricia's smile froze. "A trust? Oh, honey, those are so complicated. And expensive. Liam can manage it all for you. Why involve lawyers unnecessarily? Clara is family, Patricia, and she specializes in estate planning. It just feels safer," Audrey insisted, watching the barely contained fury in her mother-in-law's eyes. The conflict was now a silent war of nerves. Liam, sensing his mother's frustration, became more attentive, showering Audrey with gifts, expensive jewelry, a new car, all designed to lull her into a false sense of security and make her feel indebted. He even suggested a baby moon to the Bahamas, which Audrey gracefully declined, citing her doctor's advice against flying so late in the pregnancy. Every move they made was a calculated step in their grand scheme, and every counter-move Audrey made was a quiet, devastating checkmate. Clara, meanwhile, was working tirelessly. She confirmed that the Shell Corporation for Aura Aesthetics was a clear case of money laundering and fraud, designed to funnel Audrey's future inheritance into a business venture controlled by Liam and Blair. She also discovered that Liam had been secretly liquidating some of his own minor assets, a small investment portfolio, a classic car, to cover the initial costs of the new clinic, desperate to keep the scheme afloat until the big payday. This detail added a layer of desperation to Liam's greed, making him even more dangerous. Everything was falling perfectly into place. Audrey had proof of infidelity, attempted fraud, conspiracy to misappropriate an inheritance, and she was about to receive even more ammunition when Clara finished collecting the final documents on the new clinic branch. But Audrey didn't just want legal justice. She wanted to see the look on their faces when everything came crashing down. And for that, she needed the perfect stage. Audrey announced that she wanted to host a special dinner for the family, saying she had important news to share about the inheritance and the baby's future. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Patricia practically leaped with joy. Liam hugged Audrey with a triumphant smile, and even Robert called to congratulate her on her maturity in involving the family in such important decisions. They all believed this was the moment Audrey would finally agree to put part of the inheritance in Liam's name. Audrey scheduled the dinner for a Saturday night at the house she and Liam shared in Highland Park. She was careful to invite specific people, Patricia and Robert, her brother-in-law Marcus and his wife Juliana, and two of Liam's closest friends who could serve as objective witnesses. And then, with calculated malice, Audrey dropped the bombshell. "Liam, your mother mentioned that Blair Harrington is an incredible woman. Why don't we invite her too? It would be nice to finally meet your mother's friend." Liam nearly choked on his iced tea, but recovered quickly, trying to sound casual. "Oh, no need, honey, she's probably busy." But Patricia, completely missing the trap, immediately intervened. No, my son, Blair would love to. She's always saying she wants to get to know Audrey better." Audrey smiled, feigning innocence. "Then it's settled. I'll send her an invitation." Liam went visibly pale, but he couldn't refuse without raising immediate suspicion. Clara was also invited, officially as the lawyer cousin who will help with the inheritance documents. Audrey explained that it would be good to have someone with legal knowledge present to clarify any questions. Everyone agreed, thinking it was a sensible idea. No one suspected that Clara would arrive with a briefcase full of evidence and documents ready to completely destroy the charade of Liam and Blair. In the week leading up to the dinner, Audrey organized everything down to the smallest detail. She hired a high-end catering company, decorated the house elegantly but subtly, and prepared a presentation that would be displayed on the living room's large flat-screen TV. Liam thought the presentation was about the land and investment plans. He had no idea that every slide was a bomb ready to explode in his face. Blair confirmed her attendance, and Audrey saw on social media that she was excited, posting photos from the salon, getting ready for a special dinner with dear friends. The hypocrisy was so staggering that Audrey had to take a deep breath to keep from blocking the woman right then and there. But no, she needed Blair present. She needed all the culprits to be in the same room when the truth was revealed. Patricia called on Thursday to help with the preparations, but in reality she was trying to find out exactly what Audrey was going to announce. "Honey, you're going to talk about putting the deeds in Liam's name too, right? It's the right thing to do, after all, you're married." Audrey replied sweetly, "It's going to be a surprise, Mother, but I'm sure everyone will love what I've prepared." Patricia hung up satisfied, completely missing the double meaning. Liam, in the final days before the dinner, was anxious and euphoric. He even bought an expensive bottle of Dom Perignon to celebrate the family's new beginning. Audrey saw him text Blair, "She's announcing everything Saturday, soon we can be together for good." The message was captured and sent to Clara, who replied, "That idiot has no idea what's coming." On Friday, the eve of the dinner, Audrey visited her grandmother at the nursing home. The elderly woman was frail but lucid, and she held her granddaughter's hand tightly. "Audrey, my child, I know you're going through something. I can see it in your eyes." Audrey couldn't hold it in anymore and told her everything, weeping for the first time since she had discovered the betrayal. Her grandmother squeezed her hand and said, "You are strong, my girl. Do what needs to be done. That land is yours, and no one will take it from you." Saturday dawned with the Dallas sky a brilliant, cloudless blue, and the heat was already intense early on. Audrey woke up with the baby kicking hard in her belly, as if it knew this day would be decisive. Liam was animated, helping to arrange the chairs in the living room, checking that everything was perfect. He kissed Audrey on the top of her head and said, "Today is going to be a special day, honey. I love you so much." Audrey smiled and replied, "I love you too, Liam." The lie tasted like ash, but it was the final necessary ingredient in her revenge. The caterers arrived at 5 in the afternoon, and the guests began to trickle in at 6. The living room was bathed in the warm glow of strategically placed lamps, creating a cozy, almost intimate atmosphere. The dining table was set with matte white china, crystal stemware, and napkins folded into elaborate fan shapes. The aroma of the catered beef tenderloin and truffle mashed potatoes mingled with Patricia's strong perfume and the sweet scent of the dessert resting on the kitchen counter. Every detail contributed to the illusion of a perfect dinner, exactly as Audrey wanted it. An impeccable stage for a dramatic downfall. Robert and Patricia were the first to arrive, bearing a bottle of high-end Cabernet and an effusive hug for Audrey. Patricia was radiant, dressed as if for a gala, in an emerald green silk dress and flashy diamond jewelry. Marcus and Juliana arrived next, bringing a bouquet of white lilies. Clara was the next, discreetly carrying a black leather briefcase that she placed under the sideboard table, away from curious eyes. And then at 7 sharp, the doorbell rang, and Blair Harrington walked through the door. She was stunning, wearing a fitted white cocktail dress, stilettos, her blonde hair impeccably styled, and an expensive perfume that instantly dominated the room. She greeted everyone with air kisses, and when she reached Audrey, she smiled with a false warmth that made the hostess's stomach churn. "Audrey, what a pleasure to finally meet you. Patricia talks about you all the time." Audrey shook her hand and replied, "The pleasure is all mine, Blair." Liam was visibly tense but tried to hide it by talking animatedly with his friends. Blair strategically sat next to Patricia, and the two exchanged knowing, conspiratorial glances from time to time. Audrey watched everything from a distance, serving drinks, laughing at jokes, perfectly playing the role of the innocent, happy hostess. Clara, from the other side of the room, made eye contact with Audrey occasionally, a look that said, "I'm ready." The dinner proceeded with forced conviviality. Blair, emboldened by Patricia's presence and Liam's nervous attention, began to dominate the conversation. She spoke at length about Aura Aesthetics, exaggerating its success and expansion plans, dropping names of celebrity clients and hinting at massive future profits. "We're looking at a second location, maybe in Miami," Blair announced, taking a delicate sip of her wine. "It's a huge undertaking, but with the right capital, the return will be astronomical. Liam has been so helpful with the initial business plan." Liam shot her a panicked look, a subtle shake of his head, but Blair, basking in the attention, missed the cue. Patricia, however, caught the exchange and quickly jumped in, steering the conversation back to Audrey. "Speaking of capital, Audrey, you look lovely tonight. Are you feeling well? You know, we were just discussing your grandmother's estate. It's such a blessing, but managing land can be such a headache. Robert and Liam were just saying how they'd love to take that burden off your shoulders." Audrey smiled, a slow, deliberate movement that didn't reach her eyes. "It is a lot to manage, Patricia. But I've been doing a lot of reading. It's fascinating, actually. Did you know that the I-35 corridor land is being rezoned for commercial use? The valuation has tripled in the last 6 months." Liam's eyes widened slightly. He hadn't known that. He had only seen the initial lower appraisal. Audrey had deliberately kept that information private, a small, satisfying secret. The tension in the room was now a palpable thing, a low hum beneath the polite chatter. Liam kept glancing at his watch, eager for Audrey to get to the announcement and end the excruciating small talk. When the dessert, a decadent chocolate lava cake, was served, Audrey stood up, picked up a spoon, and gently tapped the side of her crystal glass, calling for attention. "Everyone, thank you so much for being here tonight. This dinner truly is special." Liam beamed, thinking this was the moment. Patricia squeezed Blair's hand under the table, her eyes glittering with avarice. Audrey continued, her voice clear and steady, cutting through the silence. "Before I talk about the inheritance and the plans for the future, I wanted to share something I discovered recently." The room fell silent. Audrey picked up the remote control, turned on the large flat-screen TV, and the first slide appeared. It wasn't a spreadsheet or a deed. It was a transcript of the audio she had recorded weeks ago, Patricia's words written in large, stark letters. "Blair Harrington is perfect for my son. That pregnant hick of a wife is 7 months along. The con is going to be beautiful." The silence that followed was a physical entity, a crushing weight of disbelief. Patricia went ashen, her emerald dress suddenly looking cheap and theatrical. Liam shot up from his chair, his mouth agape, struggling to process the words on the screen. Blair attempted a nervous, brittle laugh, but no one joined her. Audrey pressed the button again, and the audio began to play, loud and clear, Patricia's venomous voice filling the room with every cruel word she had uttered. "He's just waiting for the inheritance to clear. Then he quietly slips away and marries Blair." Patricia tried to stand up, but Robert, her husband, who was staring at the screen with a look of utter shock and disgust, grabbed her arm and forced her back down. Everyone was paralyzed, and Audrey continued, relentless. She advanced to the next slide, and now photos of Liam and Blair at the Italian restaurant appeared, embracing, holding hands, in poses that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Liam turned a deep, mottled red, opening and closing his mouth without being able to speak, while Blair tried to scramble out of her chair. "Audrey, this is a misunderstanding," Blair began, her voice a thin, reedy sound, but Audrey cut her off with a firm, dismissive gesture of her hand. "Sit down, Blair. You haven't seen the best part yet." The next slide displayed the documents for the Shell Corporation. The entire room seemed to shrink as Audrey looked at Liam with a hardness no one there had ever seen. For a moment, the air was heavy, almost palpable, as if every person present was holding their breath. Audrey felt a terrifying calm wash over her, an internal silence that only descends when pain has surpassed all possible limits and transforms into something greater. She approached the table, placing her hands on the polished wood surface, and spoke with a coldness that chilled even Blair to the bone. "You underestimated the wrong person," she said, her voice firm and low. That sentence cut through the room like a dry snap, marking the exact moment the victim ceased to exist, giving way to the woman who would take control of everything from that point on. The documents clearly linked Liam's and Blair's names to the financial movements. Audrey read aloud, "Projected initial investment $2.3 million, source, LR Estate." Everyone at the table knew LR stood for Liam and Audrey's baby, the future heir. Marcus, the brother-in-law, looked at Liam with open contempt. Juliana covered her mouth with her hands. Robert let go of Patricia's arm and moved away from her, his face etched with disgust. Patricia began to weep silently, but no one offered comfort. Clara stood up calmly, retrieved the black briefcase from under the sideboard, and placed it on the table with a heavy thud. "Here are all the documents proving attempted misappropriation of assets, wire fraud, and conspiracy to conceal assets." She looked directly at Liam and continued, "You used privileged information from your wife to set up a scheme to divert her inheritance. That is a felony under Texas law, with an aggravating factor for being a spouse." Liam tried to speak, but his voice came out trembling and weak. "Audrey, I can explain." Audrey cut him off with a coldness that even surprised herself. "Explain what, Liam? That you cheated on me? That you conspired with your mother and your mistress to steal my inheritance? That you were planning to abandon me 8 months pregnant after you got what you wanted?" Liam sank back into his chair, defeated, speechless. Blair stood up and headed for the door, but Clara blocked her path. "You'll stay too, Blair. You're in the same boat as him." Blair stopped, trembling, and returned to the table. Clara opened the briefcase and placed 2 documents in front of Liam. "You have 2 options. Either you sign this divorce agreement right now, renouncing all rights to the inheritance and all assets acquired during the marriage, or tomorrow morning I file a criminal complaint that will expose you in every newspaper in Dallas." Liam looked at his mother, who was crying silently, and then at Blair, who was pale and furious. Patricia attempted one last desperate plea, her voice choked with tears. "Audrey, my dear, I only wanted what was best for my son. You don't understand." Audrey turned to her with a gaze of pure steel. "I understand perfectly, Patricia. You called me a hick, planned to rob me, and tried to replace the mother of your grandchild with your son's mistress. And you still have the audacity to call me dear." Patricia lowered her head, utterly destroyed, while Robert stood up and walked out of the room without a word, disgusted with his wife. Liam, his hands shaking, took the pen Clara offered and signed the papers. Each signature was a blow to his own pride, but he had no choice. Clara collected the documents, checked everything, and put them back in the briefcase. "The uncontested divorce will be finalized on Monday. You have until then to vacate the house. Liam nodded, defeated, and silently rose from the table, heading straight for the bedroom to pack his things. Blair rushed out after him, embarrassed, without looking back. Patricia tried to speak to Audrey one last time, but the daughter-in-law raised her hand, cutting off any attempt at approach. "I don't want you near me or my son. Ever again." Patricia shuffled out of the house, sobbing loudly, while the other guests remained in stunned silence, processing everything that had happened. Marcus and Juliana said goodbye to Audrey with tight hugs, promising their full support. Clara stayed until the end, holding her cousin's hand with pride. "You were incredible." 2 weeks later, Audrey moved into a smaller, cozy apartment in the Oak Lawn neighborhood, far from everything that reminded her of Liam and his family. The divorce was finalized without issue, and she retained 100% of the inheritance, in addition to receiving full child support for the baby. Liam tried to contact her a few times, sending apologetic texts, but Audrey blocked his number. The only permitted communication was through the lawyers, and only regarding matters related to the child. The baby was born in November, a beautiful, healthy boy Audrey named Peter. She held her son for the first time and felt a peace she hadn't experienced in months. Her grandmother, who had partially recovered, visited her granddaughter at the hospital and wept with emotion upon meeting her great-grandson. "You are strong, my Audrey, stronger than they ever imagined." Audrey smiled, tired but happy, knowing she had made the right choice. In the following months, Audrey began working on managing the land she had inherited, learning about zoning laws, environmental permits, and urban planning. It was in this context that she met Ryan, an environmental engineer hired to regularize one of the areas. He was kind, mature, with sincere eyes and a smile that hid no ulterior motives. They started as professional partners, but slowly they began to grow closer. Ryan was divorced, a father to a 5-year-old girl, and had an organized, transparent life that contrasted completely with the chaos Audrey had experienced with Liam. He hid nothing, shared responsibilities, respected her space, and treated Peter with genuine affection. Audrey, still wounded, slowly allowed herself to trust again, one day at a time. Ryan never pressured her, always waited for her to be ready, and that won her over more than any romantic gesture. Patricia attempted reconciliation a few times, sending gifts for her grandson, but Audrey returned everything. The mother-in-law sent a letter begging for forgiveness, saying she had acted out of love for her son and deeply regretted her actions. Audrey read the letter, felt a genuine sadness for the woman who had lost everything due to greed, but did not reply. She forgave in her heart, but made no room for Patricia to re-enter her life or Peter's. Audrey's life began to flourish again. She cared for Peter, worked on the land projects, dated Ryan with calm and lightness, and rebuilt her self-esteem piece by piece. She had scars, yes, but she was also proud to have survived, to have been brave, to have protected her son. Ryan looked at her with admiration, and she began to believe she deserved to be looked at that way. 2 years passed. Audrey prospered in business, sold one of the tracts of land for an excellent price, invested in community projects in the area, and became a reference in responsible family asset management. Ryan proposed to her, and she accepted, knowing that this time it was real, healthy, and built on honesty. Peter grew up happy, surrounded by love, and called Ryan Rye, with that beautiful, natural ease of children. Audrey woke up one Saturday morning, with the Dallas sun streaming through the bedroom window, and felt a profound gratitude for the life she had built. Peter, now 3 years old, slept beside her, hugging his teddy bear, and Ryan was in the kitchen making coffee. The new house they had bought together was simple, but full of light and human warmth. Audrey got up slowly, kissed her son's forehead, and went to the kitchen to find her husband-to-be. Ryan smiled when he saw her, poured her a glass of fresh orange juice, and hugged her from behind as she looked out the window. "Are you happy?" he asked, and Audrey nodded, feeling the answer was genuine. She had been through hell, but she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more at peace with herself. Her son was growing up healthy, her business was thriving, and she had a true partner by her side. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. That afternoon, Peter was playing with his toys in the living room when he found Audrey's old phone in a drawer. Curious, he pressed a few buttons and ended up opening the file folder. "Mummy, what's this audio?" Audrey approached, saw the file recorded years ago and felt a pang in her chest. It was Patricia's audio on the phone, the beginning of everything. She took the phone from her son's hands and smiled, her eyes welling up. "It's the proof that Mommy found out everything at the right time, my love." Peter didn't fully understand but hugged his mother, sensing that it was important. Audrey looked at Ryan, who was standing in the doorway watching the scene, and he nodded understandingly. She deleted the file, knowing she no longer needed it. The evidence had served its purpose, justice had been done, and now she could move forward without carrying the weight of the past. Liam had married Blair a few months after the divorce, but the relationship didn't last long. The clinic failed, the money ran out, and Blair left him for another, more successful man. Liam now lived alone, working a mundane job, and saw his son sporadically, always with a look of regret that Audrey no longer cared about. He had made his choices, and now he lived with the consequences. Patricia aged quickly after the scandal, isolated by her own family, who never forgave the betrayal she had orchestrated against her daughter-in-law. Robert filed for divorce and distanced himself from her, and Patricia ended up living alone, frequently visiting her church, likely seeking the redemption she had lost in life. Audrey no longer felt anger, only a distant sadness for a woman who had destroyed her own family out of greed. Audrey's grandmother passed away peacefully, knowing her granddaughter was well, and that her great-grandson was being raised with love. At the funeral, Audrey held Peter's hand and said, "Grandma loved you very much, and she would be proud to see the family we've built." Peter, at 3 years old, didn't fully understand death but sensed the seriousness of the moment and stayed quiet, holding his mother's hand tightly. Audrey looked around the cemetery, saw the people who truly mattered by her side, and thought about how generous life had been to her. Not in the way she had imagined when she married Liam, full of false promises and illusions, but in a deeper, truer way. She had learned to distinguish real love from manipulation, had discovered her own strength, and had built a life worth living. That night back home, Audrey put Peter to bed, singing a lullaby her grandmother used to sing to her. The boy fell asleep peacefully, breathing softly, and Audrey stayed there a few more minutes just watching her son sleep. Ryan appeared at the bedroom door, holding out his hand to her, and the two went out to the back patio, where they sat side by side under the starry Texas sky. "If I hadn't hidden in that room that day," Audrey began, and Ryan finished, "you wouldn't be here now." She agreed, realizing the irony of how a moment of childish play had turned into the turning point of her life. She had stumbled upon the truth by chance, but she had used that truth with intelligence, courage, and dignity. And now she was reaping the rewards of choosing to fight instead of giving up. The days following the initial discovery were a blur of calculated performance for Audrey. She had to be the perfect, unsuspecting wife, a role that required an emotional toll she hadn't anticipated. The physical act of smiling at Liam, of accepting Patricia's poisonous advice, felt like swallowing shards of glass. One Tuesday, Liam came home early, a rare occurrence. He found Audrey in the nursery, meticulously arranging Peter's clothes in the new mahogany dresser Patricia had insisted on buying. "Honey, I'm home," he called out, his voice cheerful. He walked in and wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you doing, nesting?" Audrey stiffened momentarily, then forced herself to relax into his embrace. The scent of his expensive cologne, which she used to love, now smelled faintly of Blair's perfume, a sharp floral note that clung to his jacket. "Just organizing," she murmured, turning to face him. She placed her hands on his chest, right over his heart, and looked up at him with what she hoped was a convincing look of adoration. "I was just thinking how lucky Peter is to have such a hard-working father." Liam preened, his chest puffing out slightly. "I do it all for you too, you know that." He kissed her, a long, possessive kiss that made her skin crawl. "Speaking of working hard, I had a great meeting today. That land of your grandmother's. It's a gold mine, Audrey. A real gold mine. We need to move fast once the estate clears." "Oh," she asked, tilting her head innocently. "What did you find out?" "The zoning changes," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "It's not just commercial, it's mixed use, Think luxury condos, retail space, maybe even a small corporate campus. We're talking 10 times the initial appraisal, but we need to secure the permits now. That means we need capital, and we need to move the assets quickly into a holding company. That's where I come in, honey. I can set up the LLC, manage the initial investment. It's too much for you to handle right now. Audrey listened, her mind racing. He was confirming the exact details Clara needed for the fraud case. He was laying out the entire scheme, believing he was sharing a secret with his devoted partner. An LLC sounds so complicated, she sighed, letting a hint of vulnerability creep into her voice. I'm so overwhelmed with the baby coming. Maybe Clara was right about the trust. It's simpler, isn't it? Liam's face darkened instantly. Clara, why are you still talking to her about this? She's a litigator, Audrey, not an estate planner. She'll bleed us dry with fees. I can do this for free, for us. He gripped her arms, his smile fading. Trust me, honey. This is family business. Keep it in the family. Okay, she said quickly, pulling back slightly. I trust you, Liam. It's just a lot of money. I just want to make sure Peter is secure. Peter will be a millionaire before he's 5, Liam promised, his smile returning, predatory and self-satisfied. Just sign the papers when I bring them. That's all you have to do. Clara Davies, Audrey's cousin, was not just a lawyer. She was a force of nature. A week before the dinner, Audrey drove to Houston for a final strategy session. They met in Clara's sleek, glass-walled office overlooking the city. You're doing great, Aud, Clara said, leaning back in her chair, her sharp eyes assessing her cousin. The recordings are gold. The texts from Liam to Blair, the Shell Corporation documents. It's an open and shut case for criminal fraud and divorce with fault. I don't want a criminal case, Clara, Audrey said, rubbing her temples. I just want him out of my life, and I want the land protected, and I want Patricia and Blair to suffer the consequences. And that's exactly what we're going to deliver, Clara assured her, tapping a manicured nail on the black briefcase. The threat of criminal exposure is our leverage. Liam Sterling's entire identity is built on his reputation. A public fraud charge would destroy his career, his social standing, and his relationship with his father, Robert, who is obsessed with appearances. He'll sign anything to make it go away quietly. Clara then outlined the final crucial steps. The dinner is brilliant. It's a public shaming, a deposition, and a negotiation all rolled into one. When you drop the bomb, you need to be cold, clinical, and utterly devoid of emotion. You are not the victim anymore, Audrey. You are the prosecutor. You need to control the room. What about Blair? Audrey asked, her voice tight. She's the one who gets to be with him. Clara scoffed. Blair Harrington is a means to an end for Liam and a pawn for Patricia. She's collateral damage. We'll hit her with a cease and desist order for her involvement in the Shell Company, effectively freezing her assets and tying her up in civil court for years. She'll realize the perfect future with Liam is a financial nightmare. She'll leave him faster than he can say prenup. Clara opened the briefcase and showed Audrey the final documents, the uncontested divorce agreement, the renunciation of all marital rights to the estate, and a detailed, legally binding child support agreement. This is your shield, Audrey, and this, she said, pulling out a thick-bound document, is the deed to the land transferred into a newly established, irrevocable trust for Peter. Liam will never touch a penny of it. Audrey took the trust document, the heavy paper feeling solid and real in her hands. Peter Sterling Trust, she read aloud. Thank you, Clara. You've saved us. You saved yourselves, Aud, Clara corrected, giving her a rare, genuine smile. I just provided the paperwork. Audrey knew that Robert Sterling, Liam's father, was the true pillar of the family's power and reputation. His reaction was crucial. 2 days before the dinner, Audrey decided to have a private conversation with him. She found him in his study, a dark, wood-paneled room filled with leather-bound books and hunting trophies. Robert, do you have a moment? She asked, standing in the doorway. He looked up from his financial papers, his expression stern. Audrey. Yes. Come in. I assume this is about the estate. Your mother-in-law tells me you're finally seeing reason. Audrey walked in and sat in the chair opposite his massive desk. She didn't mince words. Robert, I'm not here to talk about the estate. I'm here to talk about your son. His eyebrows shot up. Liam? What about him? He's working tirelessly to ensure your financial security. He's working tirelessly to steal my inheritance, Audrey stated flatly. She watched his face closely. He didn't flinch, but a muscle twitched in his jaw. That's a serious accusation, Audrey. You need to be careful what you say. I have proof, Robert. Audio recordings of Patricia detailing the entire scheme, photos of Liam with his mistress, Blair Harrington, and legal documents proving they set up a shell corporation to funnel the money. She pulled out a single printed page, a summary of the shell company's incorporation papers, clearly showing Liam's hidden involvement. She slid it across the desk. Robert picked up the paper, his hands steady, but his eyes narrowed as he read the fine print. He was a man who understood the law and the consequences of fraud. "This is a disaster," he muttered, not looking at her. "Patricia, I knew she was ambitious, but this level of deceit. She called me a pregnant hick and planned to have Liam divorce me after the money cleared," Audrey said, her voice trembling slightly, allowing just enough emotion to show the depth of the wound. "She did this, Robert, and Liam went along with it. He was going to abandon his 8-month pregnant wife and his unborn son for a med spa owner and a few $1 million. Robert finally looked up, and the shock in his eyes was genuine. It wasn't the shock of a loving father, but the shock of a powerful man whose carefully constructed legacy was about to be stained. "What do you want, Audrey?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. "I want justice, Robert. I want Liam out of my life, and I want the land protected for Peter. I'm having a dinner on Saturday. I'm going to expose them. I'm giving Liam 2 options: sign the divorce papers and renounce all claims, or face criminal charges and public humiliation. You'd ruin my son." "He ruined himself," Audrey countered, meeting his gaze without blinking. "I'm just holding up the mirror. I came to you because I respect you, Robert, and because I want you to know that I will not be silenced. If you try to interfere, if you try to protect them, I will add your name to the list of people who knew and did nothing. Your reputation, Robert, is the only thing they haven't touched. Don't let them." Robert stared at the paper, then at Audrey's determined face. He saw not the naive girl from Oklahoma, but a formidable opponent. "I will not interfere," he said finally, his voice heavy with defeat. "I will be at the dinner, and I will ensure that Liam signs those papers." The moment Audrey played the audio, the atmosphere in the dining room didn't just change, it became toxic. A vacuum of sound and air. The polite veneer of the Sterling family shattered, revealing the ugly, desperate core beneath. After the initial shock, Blair, fueled by panic and a sense of entitlement, tried to regain control. "This is slander, Audrey. You can't just record private conversations. This is illegal," she shrieked, her voice cracking. Clara, who had been silent until now, spoke up, her voice calm and authoritative. "Actually, Blair, in Texas, only one party needs to consent to the recording of a conversation, and since my client was present, the recording is admissible in a civil suit. Furthermore, your involvement in the Shell Corporation, Aura Holdings LLC, constitutes wire fraud and conspiracy to commit theft of property. I suggest you remain silent." Blair's face went from pale to a sickly green. She looked at Liam, who was slumped in his chair, his head in his hands. Audrey advanced the slide to the photos of Liam and Blair. The images were high resolution, taken with a professional camera lens Clara had provided, showing the intimate embrace, the hand-holding, the shared, secretive laughter. "This was taken last Saturday," Audrey narrated, her voice a monotone. "Liam told me he was at the office working on a crucial merger. He was actually at La Dolce Vita with his mistress, discussing how to spend my grandmother's money." Liam finally lifted his head, his eyes red and pleading. "Audrey, please." "It was a mistake. I was stressed. It meant nothing. I love you." "Love?" Audrey laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. "Love doesn't conspire to leave a pregnant woman destitute. Love doesn't call her a hick and plot her financial ruin. You don't know the meaning of the word, Liam." Patricia, seeing her son crumble, tried to intervene again, tears streaming down her face. "It was my fault, Audrey. I pushed him. I was worried about his future. I didn't mean those things. It was just hyperbole." "Hyperbole," Audrey repeated, her voice rising slightly. "You planned to steal my child's future, Patricia. You actively participated in a criminal conspiracy. You are not a worried mother. You are a criminal mastermind. And you, she turned to Robert, who was sitting rigid and silent, you heard the plan. You knew your wife was capable of this. Robert finally spoke, his voice a low growl. I did not know the extent of it, Audrey, but I am appalled. Liam, you have disgraced this family. He looked at his son with a look of cold, utter disappointment that was far more devastating than any shout. Sign the papers, Liam, now. The final slide appeared, the corporate documents. Clara stepped forward, placing the divorce agreement and the trust documents in front of Liam. Sign here, here, and here, Clara instructed, pointing to the signature lines. This is the uncontested divorce. This is the renunciation of all claims to the estate. And this is the acknowledgement of the Peter Sterling Irrevocable Trust. Sign and this ends tonight. Refuse, and the police will be here before midnight, and the story will be on the front page of the Dallas Morning News by morning. Liam looked at the pen, then at Blair, who was now openly weeping, her expensive makeup running. Liam, please, she whispered, don't let her ruin us. Ruin us? Liam snarled, turning on her. You were supposed to be the perfect future. You were supposed to be the easy money. You're just as greedy as my mother. The fight between the two conspirators was the final, ugly spectacle. Liam grabbed the pen and signed the documents with furious, jerky movements, his signature a desperate scrawl. He threw the pen down, stood up and stormed out of the room, Blair scrambling after him, their perfect future already dissolving into mutual recriminations. After Liam and Blair left, the silence returned, but this time it was a silence of respect and awe. Robert Sterling stood up, his face etched with shame. Audrey, he said, his voice barely a whisper, I owe you an apology, a profound one. You handled this with more dignity and strength than anyone in this room. I will personally ensure that Liam adheres to every clause of that agreement, and I will ensure that Patricia never bothers you again. He looked at his wife, who was still sobbing, and his expression hardened. Patricia, you and I are done. I will be speaking to my attorney on Monday. You have disgraced the Sterling name. He turned and walked out, leaving Patricia alone at the table, her tears of self-pity ignored by everyone. Marcus, Liam's younger brother, walked over to Audrey and hugged her tightly. I'm so sorry, Aud. I always knew Liam was a jerk, but this is monstrous. Your family, we're here for you. Whatever you need. Juliana, his wife, nodded, her eyes full of genuine warmth. This moment of genuine support from Marcus and Juliana was crucial. It showed Audrey that not all of the Sterling family was rotten, and it provided her with a small, necessary bridge back to the world of human connection. The first year of Peter's life was a period of intense healing and self-discovery for Audrey. She moved into a charming older home in Oak Lawn, a neighborhood with character and history, a world away from the sterile perfection of Highland Park. She threw herself into her work, not just managing the land, but learning the intricacies of real estate development. She enrolled in night classes at SMU, studying urban planning and sustainable development. The land, which had been a source of conflict, became her project, her passion, and her symbol of independence. She met Ryan, the environmental engineer, during a site visit to the I-35 property. He was rugged, practical, and spoke with a quiet confidence that was a stark contrast to Liam's flashy arrogance. Their first meeting was purely professional, discussing soil composition and water runoff. This is a beautiful piece of land, Audrey, Ryan said, looking out over the rolling Texas hills. It has real potential, but it needs to be developed responsibly, not just another strip mall. I agree, Audrey replied, feeling a connection to his sincerity. I want to build something meaningful here, something that gives back to the community. Their relationship developed slowly, built on shared values and mutual respect. Ryan was patient, understanding that Audrey was still carrying the emotional scars of her past. He never asked about Liam, never pressured her for details, simply offered a steady, reliable presence. One evening, 6 months after they started dating, they were sitting on her porch swing, watching Peter sleep in his crib nearby. I know you went through a lot, Ryan said quietly, looking up at the stars. And I know you're still healing. I just want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for the long haul, Audrey. No games, no secrets. Audrey turned to him, tears welling up in her eyes. Thank you, Ryan. That's all I ever wanted. Honesty. She told him the whole story that night, from the moment she hid behind the door to the final signature. Ryan listened patiently, his hand holding hers. When she finished, he didn't offer platitudes. He simply said, "That took incredible courage, Audrey. You're the strongest woman I've ever met." That was the moment she knew she could trust him. His admiration was for her strength, not her inheritance. 18 months after the divorce, Audrey was at a high-end grocery store in Dallas pushing Peter in a cart when she saw Liam. He was standing in the wine aisle, looking thin and haggard, wearing a cheap, ill-fitting suit. He was alone. Their eyes met across the aisle. Liam's face registered a complex mix of shame, surprise, and a flicker of the old entitlement. "Audrey," he said, walking toward her, "you look great. Motherhood suits you." Peter, now a curious toddler, looked up at the strange man. "Mommy, who is that?" "Hello, Liam," Audrey said, her voice cool and distant. She positioned the cart slightly between them. "Peter, this is an old acquaintance." Liam ignored Peter and focused on Audrey. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry, truly, I was a fool. I let my mother and Blair manipulate me. I lost everything." "You lost everything because you chose greed over your family, Liam," Audrey corrected him, her voice firm. "You made your choices, I made mine, and I'm happy with the consequences." "I see you're doing well," he said, his eyes lingering on her simple but elegant clothes. "The land, you developed it?" "The first phase is complete," Audrey said, a small triumphant smile touching her lips. "It's a community center and a low-income housing project, not exactly the luxury condos you and Blair planned." Liam flinched. You wasted it?" "I invested it," Audrey corrected, her eyes blazing with the finality of her victory. "I invested it in something real, something meaningful, something you wouldn't understand." He looked at Peter, then back at Audrey, a profound regret washing over his face. Can I see him more often? I miss him." "You see him according to the court order, Liam," Audrey stated, "and that's how it will remain. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a life to get back to." She pushed the cart past him, the sound of the wheels on the polished floor echoing the finality of her departure. She didn't look back. She had closed that chapter for good. So, what did you think? On a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rate it? Leave your comments telling us which city you are watching from and subscribe to follow our next stories. Thank you very much for joining us, and see you next time.